Hello everyone. It may surprise you to know that leftists still can't let go of Jordan Peterson and the fact that he is helping a lot of people around the world. And he seems to be especially helpful when it comes to young men who don't exactly know how to take responsibility for their own lives, of which I have had that problem myself in the past, though I imagine he's been far more helpful to a lot of other people. But obviously it seems to be in the mind of the leftists that they don't want people to take responsibility and instead want people to be controlled by leftist dogma and ideology. So imagine my shock when a leftist author, writer and journalist starts writing for Captain America and starts putting out the following panels in his latest Captain America comic. As we can see, we have the Red Skull on screen saying 10 rules for life, chaos and order, Carl Luger's genius and the feminist trap. The comic also has these 4 tiles saying, yeah, he did, talking about this person's son. It's the same for all of them. Young men, weak, looking for purpose. I found the flag, you found the badge. They found the skull. It tells them what they've always longed to hear, that they are secretly great, that the world is against them, that they're truly men, and they will fight back. And bingo, that's their purpose. That's what they live for, and that's what they'll die for. And finally, we also have this long 8 panels. What has happened to the men of the world is truly one of the great tragedies of our time. Once the American man was a conqueror. Now he is but a caretaker. And a caretaker of what? He stands for some amorphous dream, a dream of nothing. But what I offer you is more than just some petty dream, more than a life of tending the hearth. No more shall women be summoned to fight your battles. I offer steel for your spine and an iron for your gut. I offer you the sword of manhood. Now, for those that are fans of this channel, you are probably also fans of Jordan Peterson, given I talk about him quite a lot. And you've probably noticed by now that these are obviously supposed to be parodying him. What I find even more hilarious is that leftists are taking this even more seriously. There is this leftist account called Jose Not a J. I haven't caught up on Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America yet. That's the man who wrote the previous 3 images. But Red Skull has been targeting disillusioned young men for years and selling them fascism under the guise of motivational speaking. Maybe Jordan Peterson should think about why he sounds so much like Red Skull, and then he has this panel. But that is only the beginning. Your entire culture is under siege. Your principles, your country was founded upon, lost in the name of tolerance. Your religion, your beliefs, your sense of community, all tossed aside like trash. And you cannot even speak out against it, lest you be called a bigot. Well, he's right. And who benefits from all this but the vultures feasting on the carcass, the bankers who stole your homes out from under you, and the politicians they purchased? I mean, that sounds like the 2008 crash, yes. Well, let them call you what they will. I know who you truly are. The beginning of a revolution, the first to see the collapse of the old guard, and the road to something glorious. The glory of Hydra. Yeah, you lost me at the end there. But again, this isn't Jordan Peterson's speaking. Red Skull here is telling people to be resentful and basically burn down the institutions, whereas Jordan Peterson says to do the opposite. Don't mindlessly burn down social institutions and all that, and don't become resentful and instead be grateful in spite of your suffering. Those are literally 3 chapters from his last book. So people who say that in this particular panel it sounds like Jordan Peterson, they have no idea what they're talking about. And that's the same for Ta-Nehisi Coates when he wrote the other 3 panels. He's clearly trying to parody Jordan Peterson without understanding a damn thing Jordan Peterson's saying. So naturally, given that this was obviously targeted at Jordan Peterson noticed it and sent out a couple of tweets saying, do I really live in a universe where Ta-Nehisi Coates has written a Captain America comic featuring a parody of my ideas as part of the philosophy of the arch-villain Red Skull? Well, Mr. Peterson, that does indeed appear to be the case. So many people are so mired in their own ideology they can't even recognise good advice when they see it, and will go as far as to say this is what a villain would say. And this was so ridiculous to some people that they started making memes with incredibly reasonable Jordan Peterson advice put over Red Skull images. Don't compare yourself with other people, compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Don't lie about anything ever. Lying leads to hell. And finally, no one gets away with anything ever, so take responsibility for your own life. Now, obviously, Red Skull is a fascist supervillain. He is actually literally a Nazi. And all of these quotes I just read out would not be something that he would say. He would not have you compare yourself to yourself, he would have you compare yourself to others and become mightier than them so that you can win with your might, i.e. to win through violence. That is obviously not Jordan Peterson's mantra and not something he would say. He would also not suggest you always tell the truth because he knows manipulation can see his ends come to fruition. He also would not want you to take responsibility for your own life, but instead take responsibility to putting forward his own ends. He is a manipulator and a evil character. As I say before, he is literally a Nazi. So clearly this new strategy of Red Skull completely missed the mark and is pure propaganda to undermine Jordan Peterson. Which is rather annoying, but Peterson appears to be rolling with the punches and putting out a poll saying supervillain motto poll. Red Skull says, clean your room or stand up straight. With clean your room being the big winner. Another thing that Red Skull would obviously not say. And I imagine by this point Peterson realises that with all these hit pieces and literal comic books trying to undermine him, he knows all it will do is increase his following. Because a lot of people reading the comic books will see through the propaganda and think, okay, if they're really trying to tell me he's that bad, let's have a look myself and realise that he is very reasonable, and they might even be inspired to improve themselves using Jordan Peterson's advice. But of course, Vice has different ideas. Captain America goes to war with Jordan Peterson. Red Skull, Steve Rogers' old Nazi supervillain, sounds a lot like Jordan Peterson. And given how Vice themselves have tried to undermine him, I am sure that they are all for this. The controversial Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson, a prominent figure in the so-called intellectual dark web, thinks that the current run of the Captain America comics are satirising his ideas by putting them in the mouth of Cap's Nazi nemesis, Red Skull. After reading the issue in question, I think Peterson is exaggerating his own influence, but he is definitely right that the comic is making fun of people like him. A certain type of internet influencer who wields powerful and dangerous notions of masculinity, tradition, and patriotism to their own benefit and to stoke reactionary fires. Yes, they are trying to say patriotism is bad in a Captain America comic. Okay. I don't know specifically what Vice regard as dangerous notions of masculinity, tradition, and patriotism. Hopefully they go into it, but I hope they realise that Captain America also represents masculinity, tradition, and patriotism. And I know in the film Spider-Man Far From Home, they quite literally use Captain America in Peter Parker's school as a motivational speaker, giving out advice that Jordan Peterson would agree to. But hey, I guess we'll ignore that. That is Nazi advice now. So after Vice quotes the tweet that I read out before, Jordan Peterson saying, do I really live in a world where his ideas are parodied by Red Skull in a Captain America comic, Vice say, yes, Peterson, you do, though I take issue with the word parody. In the current run of Captain America, Steve Rogers is once again facing his old Nazi nemesis, the Red Skull. In his current incarnation, Red Skull uses videos on the internet to whip up followers into a frenzy and make them question the American dream. That's which one of Jordan Peterson's followers have been whipped up into frenzies, and which of them question the American dream? Coates is an influential writer who focuses on race in America. He's best known for writing about the history of redlining in the US and making the case for reparations, so he's a mentalist. He's previously written for the Black Panther comic and is set to write the script for the next Superman film. Oh my god. No wonder comic books are losing their money and superhero films' reputation keeps being tarnished. If this is the quality of writer that they keep thinking is going to get them money, or even write good stories, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is just perfect. In the panels Peterson posted, Cap is talking with a police detective whose brother was lost to an extremist movement. So let me guess, your brother, he disappeared onto the internet, Cap said. And when he comes back, he can't stop talking about this new theory of the world, and that theory comes from one man, the Red Skull. I mean, to be fair, that does reflect Peterson. A lot of people who have improved their lives do say, oh yeah, I listened to Jordan Peterson. and took his advice and went on to improve my life. But how is that an extremist group? What is extremist about Jordan Peterson's followers not becoming radical, in fact de-radicalizing, and then improving their own lives by taking responsibility for it? You tell me. The panel shows a blank face staring at the glow of a computer monitor. Red Skull is there, surrounded by title cards. One is 10 Rules for Life. Peterson, a man who subsists entirely on beef, salt and water, don't know why that's relevant, has written a best-selling book called 12 Rules for Life, and recently released a follow-up called Beyond Order 12 More Rules for Life, and I have read both and recommend them highly. Has this journalist for Vice read them? I highly doubt it. Otherwise I think he'd comment on them. Cap's criticism of the Red Skull YouTube demagogue is precise and perfect, but it applies to a whole category of internet personalities, not just Peterson. Well, this is going to be perfectly not insane at all, is it? Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Rouge V? I thought he was a pickup artist. And former President Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump isn't a YouTuber. What are you talking about? Or just a few of the right-wing grifters. Donald Trump was the President of the United States and a wealthy businessman who used the internet to sell hate, fear and simple answers. Which of Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos and Donald Trump sell hate and fear? This is just more leftist talking points. I especially want to hear the case for Alex Jones. Alex Jones is just a radical libertarian. I want receipts on exactly how Alex Jones sells fear and hate and simple answers. He does the opposite. Coates' version of Red Skull directly and specifically references Peterson's ideas, but he's just one part of a large media environment that plays a role in radicalizing young men online. So Vice unironically linked to an article by Vice saying, from Joe Rogan to the far right inside YouTube's alt media ecosystem. Yes, people who watch Joe Rogan fall down this massive rabbit hole and eventually become the type of people who storm the Capitol. Yes, I totally believe that. This is asinine. But carrying on with the article, he tells them what they've always longed to hear, Cap says to the cop with the radical brother. That they're secretly great, that the whole world is against them, that if they're men they'll fight back, and bingo, that's their purpose. That's what they'll live for, and that's what they'll die for. Red Skull is a avowed Nazi villain, and Peterson was angry about the comparison. Yeah, obviously. Would you like it if I called you a Nazi? Would you like it if I just put quotes from you, whoever's writing this, and put them over Red Skull and say, yes, you are absolutely Red Skull? Because I can easily do that, and I can't imagine you'd be happy about it. They also bring up Ben Shapiro, but I really can't be bothered going through it. But after it, Vice say, both Shapiro and Peterson don't understand Captain America's post-war legacy at all. Rogers has been a symbolic vehicle for writers to criticise America's power structures for decades now. They both criticise America's power structures. What are you on about? When fascism, hate and demagoguery rear their ugly heads, Rogers will be there in the comic to smack them down and explain why they're bad. And I'm sure in some cases they'd agree with him, and in others they'd say, no, he's wrong. I don't care. That isn't the point. The point is that you are taking what Jordan Peterson is saying and trying to say that a Nazi would say this, and that Jordan Peterson sounds like Red Skull, a Nazi villain from Captain America. And it's just, one, ridiculous, two, shows how little you are willing to listen, and three, how willing you are to turn art into propaganda. All three of those things are disgusting, by the way. So, after going into a little bit of history on Captain America that I really can't be bothered going through because I don't think it's relevant, the Vice article says this. The other half is people like Red Skull, fascists who manipulate others as part of their will to power. In Coates Cap comics, the Red Skull isn't out in the streets every day. He's in front of a camera with a skull mask on. Red Skull literally has a skull mask fused to him. What are you on about? Pumping hate onto the internet. He knows that the only way he can defeat Captain America is by degrading what he represents. Part of that plan involves staging massive demonstrations with the wayward men he's radicalised online. To his countrymen, Captain America speaks of the dreams. He does not understand it's not the dream that moves men to the boldest of actions, but the nightmare, Red Skull said over panels of flag-faced men rallying in Lansing, Michigan. For dreams, men die, but for nightmares, men kill. The panels contain Coates' direct allusions to the January 6th Capitol riots, men wearing strange masks and tactical gear, gathered in America's capital, demanding a return to a past that never existed. And as you can see from the panels they show in the article, they're clearly trying to parody the Proud Boys on the left-hand panel. On the right-hand panel, I assume that's supposed to be the Charlottesville riots, with people with the Confederate flag draped over their face. And the other two panels, I suppose, are just supposed to be parodies of the Capitol riot. But a big thing missing from this is that it's not really explained what Captain America's ideals of the American dream are. Because as the article said before, we've essentially got a race grifter who is writing these comics. A race grifter who thinks that Jordan Peterson is literally a Nazi. So Captain America's dream might be completely different from what his dream is in every other comic written about Captain America, but I can't tell because Vice doesn't go into it. But I love this last line, that Peterson's ideas map so easily onto an 80-year-old Nazi supervillain should give the psychologist pause for thought. While this comic has been written purely for propaganda purposes, these ideas have been shoehorned into the Red Skull. It is very picky as to what ideas of Peterson's are put in, and they are essentially a bastardised version of Peterson's ideas. Where Peterson would say, take responsibility for yourself, the world is suffering and difficult, focus on your own life and improving it, Red Skull says, it is certain people that are making the world a terrible place, you need to do your part and fight them in any way you can. These are obviously completely different ideas, but according to Vice they're the same ones. That should tell you everything you need to know about Vice. So while the Vice article was entertaining to read, I have another article from Ta-Nehisi Coates in The Atlantic. Why I'm writing Captain America and why it scares the hell out of me. And this is from back in 2018, so this will be before he was actually working for Marvel. I imagine he had just been hired at this point, so this will give us a window into his ideas for what Captain America comics should be. I think it will reveal quite a lot. 2 years ago, I began taking up the childhood dream of writing comics. To say it is more difficult than it looks is to commit oneself to criminal understatement. Writers don't write comics so much as they draw them with words. What? Everything has to be shown, a fact I knew going into the work, but could not truly know until I had actually done it. For 2 years, I've lived in the world of Wakanda, writing the title Black Panther. I'll continue working in that world. This summer, I'm entering a new one. The world of Captain America. There's a lot to unpack here. Oh my god, this is incredible. Those of you who've never read a Captain America comic book or have seen him in the Marvel movies will be forgiven for thinking of Captain America as an unblinking mascot for American nationalism. In fact, the best thing about the story of Captain America is the implicit irony. Captain America begins as Steve Rogers, a man with the heart of a god and the body of a wimp. The heart and body are brought into alignment through the super soldier serum, which transforms Rogers into a peak human physical specimen, dubbed Captain America. Rogers becomes the personification of his country's egalitarian ideals, an anatomical Horatio Alger. I don't know who that is, Americans, please fill me in. Who through sheer grit and the wonders of science rises to become a national hero. Alright, cool. Sounds great. Can't wait for him to undermine it. Rogers' transformation into Captain America is underwritten by the military, but perhaps haunted by his own roots in powerlessness. He is a dissident just as likely to be feuding with his superiors in civilian and military governance as he is to be fighting with the supervillain Red Skull. Conspirators against him rank all the way up to the White House, causing Rogers to at one point reject the very title of Captain America. At the end of World War II, Captain America is frozen in ice and awakens in our time, and this too distances him from his country and its ideals. He is a man out of time, a walking emblem of greatest generation propaganda, brought to life in this splintered postmodern time. Thus Captain America is not so much tied to America as it is, but to an America of the imagined past. What do you mean the imagined past? He literally lived through it. In one famous scene, flattered by a treacherous general for his loyalty, Rogers, grasping the American flag, retorts, "I'm loyal to nothing, General, except the dream." And this is where I start to get worried, because Coates, as a critical race theorist and leftist, seems to want to completely undermine the American dream and basically completely rewrite history. As he says, it is an imagined past that Captain America comes from, despite the fact Captain America lived in that time and literally fought for it, so I don't know what to tell him. I confess to having a conflicted history with this kind of proclamation, which is precisely why I'm so excited to take on Captain America, because he can't wait to undermine it. I have my share of strong opinions about the world, but one reason that I chose the practice of opinion journalism, which is to say a mix of reporting and opinion, God, that sounds like the worst type of thing imaginable, is because understanding how those opinions fit in with the perspectives of others has always been more interesting to me than repeatedly restating my own. I mean, sure, I agree, but I don't call what I do journalism, I call it commentary. I make it very clear on this channel all the time that when I am reporting facts, it is specifically there for me to bounce my opinion off, and I will always provide sources for these facts. But I would never say something like that. I would never say I am practicing opinion journalism. I am not mixing reporting and opinion. I am reporting facts that I have sourced to bounce my opinion off, because ultimately that's what this channel's for, to put my opinion out there. But to try and make it that these things can be mixed and that's a good thing, not a fan. Writing for me is about questions, not answers, and Captain America, the embodiment of a kind of Lincoln-esque optimism, poses a direct question for me. Why would anyone believe in the dream? What is exciting here is not some didactic act of putting my words in Captain America's head, but attempting to put Captain America's words in my head. By doing the exact opposite, it seems. What is exciting is the possibility of exploration, of avoiding the repetition of a voice I've tired of. And then there is the basic challenge of drawing with words. You're just talking bollocks. The fear that accompanies every effort, and the fear is part of the attraction, because, if I'm honest, the opinion part of opinion journalism is no longer as scary as it once was. Reporting, another word for discovery, okay, will always be scary. I'm lost. I'm sorry, I have been wordlessly struck. Andy No isn't scared by reporting facts. He is scared by Antifa attacking him for reporting facts. You pissing about in the Atlantic and at Marvel, putting your reporting / opinionated reporting into these articles and comics isn't in any way scary. What could possibly be scary about that? I don't even know what you have reported on, but I don't think it's anywhere near as dangerous as going to a war zone with a bulletproof vest on that says press. So don't give me that. Opining, less so. And nothing should really scare a writer more than the moment when they are no longer scared. I think it's then that one might begin to lapse in self-caricature, endlessly repeating the same insights and the same opinions over and over. Which you ended up doing anyway, because I imagine you've written articles about Jordan Peterson calling him a Nazi. So you've just stated an opinion over and over again in the latest Captain America comic. I'm not convinced I can tell a great Captain America story, which is precisely why I want so bad to try. Well, the premise of it itself shows me that you can't tell a great Captain America story, so, you know, sure, try and get better, but I don't think you're going to get better while you are in your ideological prison. There's then a small paragraph where he basically fluffs up other people he'll be working with. I really can't be bothered reading it. But he finishes with this paragraph. Finally, but most importantly, I have to thank the black comic creators I admire as a youth, often without even knowing they were black. Now this to me screams that there were comic creators he was reading when he was younger who were white, that he didn't know were white, but then when he found out they were white, he didn't want to thank them in this particular paragraph. That to me screams of racism, and I want to know why Marvel are hiring racists. Oh, sorry, he's black, he can't be racist. So he names them, without whom none of this would be possible. Would it be possible without white comic creators, I wonder? There has long been a complaint among black comic creators that they are restricted to black characters. I don't know how true that is, and I doubt it's true. I don't know what it means to live in a world where people restrict what you write, and the reason I don't know is largely because of the sacrifices of all those who were forced to know before me. Oh, so a long complaint among black creators. Right, so you mean in the past there has been complaints about it, right? That's a completely different sentence. And you don't know that anymore, so I don't know why you said it has long been a complaint. It's no longer a complaint, it is in the past. Don't use present tense when you mean past tense, you imbecile. You're supposed to be a writer. I have not forgotten this. Right, cool. So, he's a blacktivist, essentially. We have blacktivists everywhere, even writing Captain America comics now, and he wants to go against Jordan Peterson because he thinks he's a white nationalist Nazi. Right, great. This was very insightful. Thank you, Atlantic, for letting him publish his nonsense. So there we have it, folks. Comicsgate keep getting all the evidence they need to show that it is social justice that is ruining comic books and ruining their sales, rather than the racist patriarchy. They have become propaganda machines for leftist ideology. And the last thing that is interesting to read on any long-term basis is propaganda, because propaganda is necessarily not timeless, as it has to fit with specific ideologies, and ideologies at battle completely change between centuries and even decades. Whereas universal ideas such as the American dream, at least in its original state, are universal and are timeless, but when you try and make the American dream just specifically about, say, the current issues that leftists think we have, then all of a sudden it's not timeless and constantly contradicts itself. Which, if an idea contradicts itself, it is not a good idea, and not one that can last. But this is what the comic book industry seems to want, so I hope they enjoy losing their money. And they fully deserve it. But that was everything I had for you today. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.